Welcome to our folks on YouTube that may be watching us. I think last year we did this. We had actually quite a few watching us on YouTube. So welcome everyone. So this is the show where we talk about what's in the news, and we talk with the best students, the best folks in the whole world to chat with, which is our USM students. So thank you here. We also have a special guest expert with us tonight. So this is all going to be very exciting. So this is the show where we talk about what's in the news and why we might care, right? So the news is the weather report for your society. This is the idea that these issues that are confronting us as citizens, that are confronting our communities, how do we know that we need to make decisions about them? Well, you read the news, and then you talk about it with each other, and you figure out what needs to be done. So this show is all about that. So we are going to kick it off, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists tonight to introduce yourselves. Tell us, if you're with a student group, tell us that, and tell us maybe your major, where you're from, and if you so affiliate with anybody, Democrat, Republican, whoever, let us know that too. So we'll start with you.
Hello everyone, my name is Allison Gonzalez. I am a senior sociology and political science double major. I am from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I am currently president of our USM College Democrats, so I guess that answers the question. I am a registered Democrat.
Oh, you're the one. Okay, excellent.
Good evening. My name is Susan Rostowski, and I'm a professor of social work. Been here at the university for 24 years. One of the courses that I teach most regularly is social welfare policy in context, and in context means in Mississippi. I am a Democrat.
Hey everybody, my name is Landon Moran. I'm a sophomore chemistry major from coastal Mississippi. I'm not representing any student groups, and I'm left-leaning.
My name's Davis McBrayer from Meridian, Mississippi. I'm a sophomore here at USM, and I'm also not representing any groups.
Okay, all right. Thanks, guys, a lot. So let's kind of start the discussion tonight. The theme is Mississippi politics. So let's kind of start at a little bit of a high level. So I actually went and looked this up upwards of 17 minutes ago, and the youth trend is really interesting. So in 2014, 13% of what we identify as a youth vote, which is basically 18 to 26, 13% of the youth vote voted in the midterm election in 2014. In 2018, 28% voted, and then 23% voted in 2022. So in other words, only 1 in 5 of our youth are actually going out to vote. So talk to me a little bit about that. Is that an issue? Should it be an issue? And if it is, how do you turn it around? What should we be thinking about? I'm looking at you there, young Democrat.
Well, I want to comment that the youth vote has been steadily on the rise, primarily since the last 2016 election. This new generation, especially around the ages that are currently at Southern Miss, have been more involved in policy. Of course, when you're looking at the difference in the national average for voter turnout for state and local elections compared to presidential elections, they always are lower. I think that also has to do with the lack of resources in some families. When you're looking at a state like Mississippi with the rural populations and how many people are disconnected from large urban areas often have times of higher voter turnout compared to rural areas, and that's usually because information and access to it is more readily available. So I think that's one thing to look like. How are we making voter information and policy that's happening more available to these younger voters to make sure they are educated?
Okay. Jump in there, gentlemen.
Being from Mississippi, I can tell you that when I was in high school and turned 18, none of us were voting. I was telling somebody earlier, when I turned 18, I had to register to vote to get extra credit for a class. It was an AP government class.
Yikes.
But being 18.
Did you get the extra credit?
I did. It was like 5 points in class. I really needed it too.
Gotcha.
Being 18 here, that's really not what's on your mind, you know? Because while I do think it is important to vote, I think it's more important to be informed. And like she was saying, it's harder to get informed if you're somewhere where that's not everywhere. It's not easy to access. So the numbers being low, especially in, like around here, I don't think it's a super huge issue because they're simply not concerned with it for the most part, you know? They're concerned about how their truck looks or what type of music's out at the moment.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
You know, I think I do have to disagree with what you said. I think a lot of times in modern culture, especially with the younger generation, we have so much access to information through social media, just primarily through social media, TikTok being probably the biggest one. I know if I ever have a question, I used to go straight to Google. It's straight to TikTok now. If I need someone to tell me what to do, I need advice on something, it's straight to TikTok.
Yikes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yikes.
Sometimes it's not the best idea, but
Okay, so I'm going to actually ask our expert here to weigh in on why it might be important to vote. But before I do that, why aren't you guys interested? Why isn't your demographic interested? 1 in 5 are voting. Why aren't you guys more interested?
I don't think there's a specific reason why people aren't turning out to vote. I mean, your story surprises me because I remember when I turned 18, everybody told me I couldn't do anything. But the first thing I did when I turned 18, I was like, well, I can vote now. But
There you go.
very odd. I guess when we've covered this in political parties, one of my political science classes, analyzing voter turnout and people who are involved in policy, and I guess the reflection of people who are sitting in this room currently can answer that for you. People who are actively engaged, especially younger people, middle-aged, older generations, they are often political aliens. Like that is not a common theme in American politics overall, not just with our generation. It's every average American citizen, and they are called political activists. Not saying that they're actively doing anything, but that means they're actively staying up to date on political issues that matter to them. And those type of people are rare. So it's not just in our generation, it's in the average American citizen, no matter their age.
Yeah, I think the numbers certainly bear you out, right? So talk to us a little bit about why it might be important. So we get government from our politicians, and we get our politicians from voting. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's, I think, one of the things that happens, and you're exactly right. It's not just young people that don't vote. It's all across all age groups. As a matter of fact, our last few governors have been elected with a very slim minority of people who were eligible to vote actually voted. So if you win an election, but only 23% of eligible voters voted, what does that say? So there are several issues here. One is, as you were saying, people don't connect politics with electing the person who's going to implement policy that affects you. That's one issue. And many people don't understand policy. There are so many misconceptions and a lot of misinformation out there about everything from, well, we're going to talk about TANF later, but everything from TANF and SNAP benefits and Medicaid and transgenderism. Like, let me just say, no one performs gender reassignment surgery on children. It's not done. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
all those political ads
all
you've seen
right,
out there.
Right.
Yep.
And many times people, especially in Mississippi, vote against their own best interest because they don't understand that connection between this person you're voting for and the policies that that person will create.
Right. No, I think that's good. That's good perspective. So let's head it. So the other big thing is that this election, now the Mississippi governor's race is the one everybody's really talking about. That will be, the ballot will be open November 7th, right? And so this year is a little bit different because a lot of folks are looking at a potential runoff. Have you engaged in that issue at all? So are our students talking about anything like this? Oh, there might be a runoff in the governor's race? Is that reached our students?
A runoff hasn't been mentioned, but the closeness of the polls have, especially at least in the circles that I'm a part of and the students that I interact with who are taking focus. Then again, I am part of a political organization on campus, so it's not going around in every student organization I'm a member of. But with the students who are actively being engaged, we do know how close the polls are leading, but I have not heard anything of a runoff.
Yeah. So this is where, in order to be governor, you have to get 50% plus one.
Yes.
So 50% plus one vote. So, and this goes to well, let's just go ahead and talk about the polls. So that is one of the things folks are talking about, is that this race is, it's hard to tell how close it really is, but there's a lot of folks saying that it may well be within that margin where nobody gets 50%, which would then throw it into a runoff, which means we have to go back and vote 30 days later. So what do you guys, so talk to me about, do you guys care about a runoff? Do you guys care about a runoff at all? Does that do anything for you? Is that more exciting?
Personally, I think a lot of times in American politics, we have to choose between the lesser of two evils. And evils being a very strong word to use, but for lack of better terms, I'm going to keep with it.
I'm okay with it.
I believe that a runoff is very possible. I check the polls every few days just to see what the newest statistics are. And I do believe a runoff is possible. I don't know if it's more exciting. It's kind of scary, if I'm going to be honest.
Interesting.
Because it's not only affecting like who is governor, it's affecting everyone in the state, what change we can make, who's going to get Medicaid, who's going to get these rights, who's going to have access to do these things. And so I guess a runoff is pretty scary rather than actually knowing.
Interesting. Okay, so we are going to take a break, and we will pick up actually with some poll numbers on the other side.
It's just also like runoffs have a lower voter turnout than the initial race. And people can't even get election day off, so
Yeah, so
it's not a recognized holiday.
You go back, I mean, it's really interesting. I have no idea whether we're actually on the air or not. Wilbur, you think we're actually on the air? Yeah, on the air.
because, again, we allow people to pay such low wages and not provide benefits. By the way, the United States and one other country, and I'm going to say the wrong country. I want to say Libya. We are the only modernized countries that don't provide universal health care for our people.
Yep, yeah. So this has been probably the major campaign issues, at least from what I can tell. Second would be the welfare scandal. So clearly the candidates think Medicaid will work with voters. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure it is.
Okay, I'm talking too much, but I want to tell you that the majority of Mississippians, and get this, the majority of Republicans in both the House and the Senate, Mississippi House and Senate, want Medicaid expansion.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Now that does bring me to something that we didn't talk about earlier on kind of the big issues, right? So the Mississippi legislature has a supermajority of Republicans. So what that means is that even with a Democrat governor, they can override any veto. They can pretty much force the governor's hand on pretty much anything with a supermajority. Now, there is some information that depending on the turnout, depending on how many, who turns out where, it's possible that you could break the supermajority, but not break the majority. There's no mathematical way to break the majority. So what do you think about that? Is that a factor? And we're going to pick up with that issue on the other side of these breaks. Do you guys want to ask any questions? I mean, this is our first election without that crazy old county-by-county system. Yeah. City today ran a piece but I don't know that it's going to be so close to make a difference. I'm interested in it. Yeah, I am too. Think of a better question. That's what I tell my students.
What do you teach?
Journalism. Do you want to ask a question?
Dr. Green? Yes. Yes, I have. I've had all 6 of the political science professors. I just went to Italy working with migrants with Ball Press.
Oh, yes. My colleague, Karen Ader.
Yes, I know Karen. Karen is a wonderful person. She came out Monday, yes. So, yeah, taken all 6 of them.
30 seconds, gotcha.
Does state police have a likability problem?
Oh, yes, that's a good question.
Among the USM students, yes, he does.
And welcome back. And we were picking up with this idea that the governor, even if the governor's office were to flip from Republican to Democrat, the Mississippi legislature currently is a supermajority of Republicans, and there is no mathematical way to flip either house in Mississippi, but it's possible to break the supermajority. So is that motivating to some of our young people? Or is that just way too obscure?
I actually think it's quite the opposite. We have the common belief in American voting systems that, oh, my vote doesn't matter. It's just one single vote. And so I think in young people, we also see the turnout decreasing in state and local elections because we cannot break that supermajority. There's no, like you said, there's no mathematical way. And a lot of times I believe it resonates in people's minds, why even try, you know?
Yeah, I've heard that actually quite a bit.
It's a difficult topic because when you're looking at the legislature compared to a governor's decision where the entire state participates in electing that official, compared to state representatives, you have to take a look into, like, especially with the 4 districts of the state of Mississippi. I know we're separating from like the state legislature more to like Congress, gerrymandering and how things are structured for our voters. So I can't really blame people. Yeah, that's great. We can finally get a popular vote to elect a governor in the state. But when you're looking at how districts and how counties are structured, it's still silencing a vote and a voice that is very much here in the state of Mississippi. It's prevalent. I did not move here and was met with the stereotypes that is held by about Mississippians, but it's silenced by the structure and how it is built, the system that is built to maintain, I think, this good old boys club in politics here.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I'm going to move us a little bit to the other big, one of the other big issues that have come up repeatedly in the campaign, which is the welfare scandal. So this is the idea where it is considered the largest scandal, political scandal in Mississippi history, which says a lot when you consider Mississippi history. 77 million in federal welfare money was misdirected, allegedly, to a variety of things, including a $5 million volleyball court here at USM that was involved, quarterback, what's his name?
Brett Favre.
Brent Favre. That repeatedly comes up in the news. So are we paying attention to that issue? Is that an issue that our USM students care about?
Whenever this issue first came out, I did not care. I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't understand it. I thought there was too much he said, she said, things happening. But when Allie actually asked me to join the panel, I was like, oh, I got to do some reading. And I did a lot, actually, and just found that it was
Cards
pretty,
have come out on the table.
It was
I love
pretty
it.
intense. A lot of things were said, and it's a bit frustrating how no one's been accused of anything, or specifically the current governor has not really there's been no action to make sure that he's held accountable for what he did.
Oh, that was, you wrapped up a lot quicker than I thought.
I thought it was honestly a joke. I remember my parents moved down to the coast. My mother is from the coast of Mississippi, and they called me when it first hit the news before I learned about it. And she's like, did you hear about the volleyball complex at your school was from stolen money? And I was like, that's hilarious. And I come from a family that's not a fan of Brett Favre. So once his name was connected to it, it was kind of a running joke in the family. And of course, more information came out about where the money went, and just more research in journalism was done about it. And I've met the Democrat candidate for Attorney General, Greta Kemp Martin, and I talked to her some about why hasn't anything been done? Why hasn't there been any charges really filed? Why hasn't there been court proceedings? And it's because of our Attorney General. Nothing is being done by the exact office for our state that is supposed to hold political figures accountable. So until this new election happens, depending on where this next election goes, is going to dictate whether anybody who participated in this scandal is going to be held accountable.
Yeah, well, there have been a few folks who've pleaded guilty to various things associated with that. And of course, Governor Reeves will say, hey, I wasn't the governor then. Okay, go ahead, jump in there.
Okay. All right, well, and bits and pieces come out, you have to watch very carefully. And again, Mississippi Today is just the best. And Anna Wolf is the journalist who won the Pulitzer for her investigation. And she's actually the one who blew the whole story. She spoke to my policy class via Zoom, and I was just starstruck by her because I think she's so wonderful. And so the students were asking her the same questions because, we've seen like the news, that's people's name, news. So the news, right, so they're in trouble and they've started giving some information over, and there's other pieces of information that are coming here and there. And the students were asking her, why has this not been blown up the way it should be? And she said, the people who are doing this are making sure that they've got every jot and tittle taken care of so that when it does happen, it'll stick. And every once in a while, if you keep watching the news, there'll be something that comes out. There was a whole thing, was it in Mississippi Today, the other, it was sometime this week maybe, about a conversation that the then Lieutenant Governor was having with, well, it's time, we can move this money now.
Yeah.
And the governor says, or Mr. Reed says, go ahead and move this money. So it's there. So I think eventually it'll come to light. I pray that it will come to light. Because again, this is what's disgusting about it. As I'm going to repeat myself, we are the poorest state in the country. We are the sickest state in the country. We are the least educated state in the country, and yet we still want to steal money away from people who truly need it to, build, whether it's a volleyball court or send somebody to some fancy schmancy recovery place. It's disgusting.
Okay. Yeah, so, I do think that sometimes it gets lost that the scandal is about misdirecting welfare money that was meant for our poorest, most vulnerable residents, to other things. Some of them more egregious than others. But yeah, so about who's being held accountable is certainly part of it, but also the system, right? So what about anything else about the welfare scandal? When it happened, I heard our students talking about it a lot, but I really haven't heard them talk about it really since.
I think it was mainly a large topic of conversation just because the Brett Favre name was connected to it. Like one of our most notable alumni from our university being connected, and then there is his connection with one of his children being a volleyball player. It was just more of, I think, a joke amongst students about it when we thought about it. And then realizing as more things have come out, especially if you're somebody who's watching the governor's race closely, what that money was used for. Not just our volleyball complex, but I feel like we've seen the campaign ads like the ice maker, the lemon tree garden, and stuff like that. These aren't anything where this money is helping the people who need it. And that should anger more people than I think it actually does. For some reason, concerns for the sick and poor are always on the back burner, I feel, with the American mind. And you could blame consumerism, every man for himself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality to blame for that. But this is money that is meant in ways to help people in need. And it was used for some of the most outrageous things that I have ever heard of, and not even utilized in a way to create a facility, maybe a food pantry, a facility for housing for people on welfare if they are it wasn't used for anything to actually benefit society, only benefit the needs, more so the wants of these elite people in Mississippi. So.
What I found in my research of the welfare scandal was that the welfare money actually went to at least four different things. A volleyball complex that's here at the University of Southern Mississippi, Brett Favre directly, a horse farm, and a retired Mississippi wrestler all received funds from the welfare budget in Mississippi. And during this time, we had the clean drinking water crisis in Jackson. Jackson residents had no access to clean drinking water, and everyone was just like, what do we do? And they were giving out money to these people who, if I can say, already have way too much money. And there was just nothing done about that, and now it's just something we're trying to glaze over or trying to ignore while we focus on having these crazy right before election mentalities and ideologies so we get voted in office when really we're stealing from the Mississippian people.
Interesting. Okay, so we and this coming up, I believe, is our last segment. Is that right? After this, yeah. So we are. So I'm going to introduce an idea, and then we'll pick it up for our final segment, which is this idea of vehicle license taxes. Have you guys caught this? Yeah. This has actually been a thing in the last couple of weeks. So I'm looking at my. Oh, right now? Oh my God. Okay. All right. So I lost track of time here. So anyway, let's do this. Thank you very much to our panel. I appreciate it very much. Yay! Yay! Okay, and this has been a production of Southern Miss Student Media. We got a whole basketball team of help tonight. So thank you to Shania Williams, who is upstairs. Actually, she's not with us here. She's up at the WUSM offices, making sure things work. Matthew Lee is our engineer. Thank you, Matthew. Kennedy Lucen has been running our video feed. So if you see us, sorry, but it's Kennedy's fault. Thank you, Lauren Johnson, who put all of this together. She is the regular producer for News You Need. Thank you to Jonathan McGowan and Student Media Center Director Jason Beverly for being here and making sure all this works. And thank you, Dr. Wilbur Martin, who watches over the radio station. And we are out.